You know what? We need to bookmark this upcoming segment. This one we're about to do right here. I almost said, can we record it? As if we don't record everything we do on air. Can we record this segment because there's a good chance we're going to have to use it again next year. And I don't want to assume again that everybody else is aware of the facts. Because yesterday we received word, the reports were out on who will be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame this year. 6 names, deserving. I try to do the snub conversations without insulting any of the inductees. But if you needed to pick one, I think we could. As far as who wouldn't get in order for, ready for this, Rod Brind'Amour to be in the class. And there's better examples in years past when Rod Brind'Amour was snubbed. There were better examples of players that he would have replaced in years past. But yesterday we talked about it, and I made the mistake of thinking we didn't have to make the factual, statistic-based arguments for Rod Brind'Amour to be in the Hall of Fame. So I focused on the contextual. I focused on the narrative. I focused on what he meant to a franchise and what he meant to a Stanley Cup champion and his impact as far as the person, the player, the longevity. And the reason why I made those arguments is because I think those are the ones that are at risk of being lost to time, right? If you are a first ballot Hall of Famer, it feels like you played yesterday. Everybody remembers the grit, the time you played through an injury. Everybody remembers the clutch goal you scored. Everybody remembers the context, right? You were just on the ice. But the further you go and the more times a player like Rod Brind'Amour is snubbed from getting in the Hall of Fame, those memories fade. And suddenly that game-winning goal that clinched a crucial postseason series is just one tally in the postseason goal category, right? The context of it all, the emotions, the importance of it all, it goes away. And it just becomes statistics. So yesterday we focused on that. We focused on what he meant and how and those things. When after the show, and just so you know, I do this, when I'm going through social media or I'm looking through our YouTube comments or whatever to see what did and didn't connect with the listeners, there was more like, we know he's a great guy. We know he's a great leader. Maybe he'll get in as a builder in the builder category if he has a continued trajectory of greatness as a coach, but he wasn't the player that should get into the Hall of Fame. And I went, oh no. I didn't make the player argument because I thought we all were in agreement there. I left it out with an assumption, and you know what assuming does, right? It makes a you-know-what out of you and me. So I wanted to double back and clear up my misgivings. Rod Brind'Amour, as of right now, is 55th all-time in points. I made some of these statistical arguments earlier. So if you were listening earlier, first of all, you're the real MVP. It was over an hour ago. But I'm going to make some of them again just to hammer home the point. He is 55th all-time in points. History of the league. Only 9 names above him on that list. Out of the 54 above him, only 9 are not currently in the Hall of Fame. 6 of them currently still play. So obviously they will one day be in the Hall of Fame based on everything I'm about to tell you. The 14 below him on that list. So he's at 55. The next, whatever that goes down to 69, I think. The 14 below him on the all-time point list are either in the Hall of Fame or still playing. So of the top 69 players in all-time points in the history of the league, all but 3 of them are either still playing or in the Hall of Fame. All but 3 of them. Now, like let's call a spade a spade. There's There has to be a line somewhere, right? Somebody has to be the first that doesn't get in. Somebody has to be the best player that's not in the Hall of Fame. So maybe those 3 players, unfortunately, that's where we drew the line, right? You did something that you didn't do it well enough, your peak wasn't high enough, whatever it is. But here's the hard part I have with that. All but 3 of the top 69 players in points scored, points produced, are either in the Hall of Fame or active. Rod Brind'Amour is one of the 3, and he has 2 Selke trophies, which goes to the best defensive forward, and many other years where he was near the top of the voting in that particular awards category. The best defensive forward. So he's in the top 55 all-time point producers, and that's not even his bag. He wasn't winning awards for scoring. He was winning awards for playing defense. And he happened to be in the top 55 in point producing. And by the way, when he retired, he was higher on that list because he's been out of the game for a while and guys have passed him. Right? Point producing wasn't his thing. That's not his cup of tea. That's not what he does best. That's his side hustle. And he's as good as guys that are in the Hall of Fame for that being their main hustle. This is like, if not Ben Wallace is the wrong word because he's not a defenseman, but if like John Stockton or something, who's known for assists in the NBA, was amongst the best scorers. Like if every scorer got to a certain level, was in the Hall of Fame, and we're going and he was passed first. Brind'Amour was not a point producer in the way that other Hall of Famers that are in the Hall of Fame for their point production was. He was a guy that had the two-way hockey game. I mean, you see it in how he coaches, although I almost don't want to bring up him as a coach because I don't want to muddy the waters. I'm talking about him as a player going into the Hall of Fame. And oh, by the way, he captained a Stanley Cup champion. Oh, by the way, there has not been an unlimited amount of Stanley Cup champions, right? And he was the captain on a Stanley Cup champion that quite frankly, I don't know. It's happening a lot recently, and I actually think it's kind of disrespect. But when people are doing like the rankings of the century, if you rank the Stanley Cup champions of this century by talent, they're not number 1. I'll put it that way. They're not number 1. I think they're too low on some of those lists, but they're not top 5. Right? But they found a way to win, and leadership has to play. Winning has to play a part of it. Has to. Longevity has to play a part of it. Willingness to do the things that others aren't have to play a part of it.
I mean, if you look at the statistical profile, you compare Rod Brind'Amour to players like the Sedin twins, who were inducted 3 years ago. Rod played more games, had more points per game, pretty similar, but Rod also won 2 Selkes and actually won the Stanley Cup. Captained his team to the Stanley Cup. So when you compare, some players like that. It was
not a ring-chasing...
and it wasn't like a super team either. Like, he was a leader on that team, and it was definitely a team effort, and there were great players. Like Eric Stahl had 100 points that season, but it's not like Rod Brind'Amour was the one getting carried through the playoffs. Like, he was doing more than enough. I'm pretty sure, again, I mentioned this yesterday, he had, I think, 12 goals in that playoff run, then ultimately won the Stanley Cup. I think he had the game winner in Game 7 against the Sabres.
That's the thing. Like the winner in Game 7 is the further away we get. It's just he had 12 goals in a postseason run, and it's not like, no, it's not just 12 goals.
The moments. I mean,
it's 12 goals.
The wraparound goal in Game 1, game winner with 30 seconds left when I believe it was Ty Conklin turned it over behind the net. I mean, it's an iconic moment in the history of the franchise and arguably in the history of the league because they ended up winning the Stanley Cup. It's the first one the franchise has had, and it was just a few years after moving down here. I mean, the Whalers never won one. Moved down here, and Rod Brind'Amour leads them to get one. And if you want to say, he should go in as a builder, like, I guess I get it, but he was too good of a player for you to induct him as just a builder.
Making him wait until he adds to his resume is as a coach it's quite frankly, it's disrespectful to me. Right? Quite frankly, it's disrespectful He shouldn't have to. And by the way, like if you want to go like as impact, the what was it? It was Tampa, the Stanley Cup before, right? And then there was a season we don't like to talk about that happened in the middle there, or it didn't happen in the middle there. Then the Canes, those two right there, Tampa followed up by Carolina. Hockey in the South is kind of built on those two pillars, right? And now we're seeing the Florida teams and Texas and everything like that's impact on the league. It's wildly frustrating to me, and I guess we're gonna do this until we see him walk across that stage and accept his induction into the Hall of Fame. But the stats aren't going to change. What we just like the list. I guess he could go further down a list if more guys pass him, but he's only going to get passed by Hall of Famers at this point. There's the statistics aren't going to change. He's not going to go out there and up his points per game or anything like that. So that's always going to be there. The thing we have to keep up is the impact, the context, right? It's not just a goal. It's a goal in Game 7 to clinch it. It's not just a cup. It's a cup where they weren't a super team, and he wasn't a backpack being carried by other better players. He was one of the driving forces. I will give the Hockey Hall of Fame one out. You have one escape hatch. Eric Staal is eligible next year, I believe, for the first time. I saw somebody on Twitter got in my DMs, actually. They wanted this private. They didn't want this public because I was complaining about Rod Brind'Amour not being in the Hall of Fame. They said, do you think they're just waiting so Staal and Brind'Amour can go in together? And I went, I don't think that's what's happening. But if it just so happens to be that and I were one of the voters, I would go, this was the plan all along. And almost like use that as a get out of jail free card.
I'll go ahead and
I don't think he
stop you full stop right there. I don't think Eric Staal is making the Hall of Fame.
I don't either. And I don't think he would be a first ballot. But
1,000-point scorer, good player, won a Stanley Cup, one-time All-Star. Don't think that's enough.
I would agree with you. But if it happens, then it's like you kind of give the Canes a solid while to make up for the disrespect, right? It's like how can I make it up to you? Well, Eric Staal, and we made Rod wait all this time. Would Eric Staal make it cool? If you want to do some back alley deals, we can do some back alley deals.